So, Michael, in your recent report, what did you conclude about the relationship between health, climate change, and the current objectives of our economic system?
The government in 2010 seemed to have one overriding objective, which was austerity. They didn't translate austerity into restricting effects on the environment, but was restricting social spending. What my 10-year-on review exposed, life expectancy stopped improving, that inequalities in health got bigger, and life expectancy for the worst off, particularly among women, declined. And that suggests that what government was pursuing over the last 10 years was creating a worse society. That may not have been the objective, but that was the outcome. And then we get COVID-19. It turns out that austerity was a policy choice. When it seems to be urgent, then the government can spend anything. They've socialized the economy. What the economic and social response to COVID-19 will do is worsen inequalities.
And then the things that needed to have been done to prevent a pandemic that haven't been done, the reasons they haven't been done are similar reasons to what the climate and ecological crisis aren't being dealt with. And the word that people use is it's impossible. People cannot conceive of making the changes. Well, it's been forced on us. What was once impossible is now happening. And Extinction Rebellion have been saying right from the start that we need to try and aim for 2025. And we've frankly been laughed at for putting such an, in quotes, impossible target. But what is happening right now is the kinds of things that would have to happen to hit a 2025 target.
People are now noticing that when you do scale down energy use and industrial production, then it does have these ecological benefits. But the crucial thing to observe here is that this is happening in an unplanned, chaotic way that's hurting people's lives. We would never advocate for such a thing in climate policy. What we need is a planned approach to reducing unnecessary industrial activity that has no connection to human welfare, that is, and also that disproportionately benefits already wealthy people as opposed to ordinary people. So there are much more equitable, just, and careful, planned ways to approach this kind of problem than what's happening right now.
But as I say, it needs to not be ideological. Mervyn King said just a few months ago that we were heading for another financial crisis. We've got either financial crises or health crises or ecological crises or one bouncing off the other. There is no post-COVID situation. There's only crises one after another coming unless we sort out the issues.
The key thing we have to recognize, however, is that the main form this crisis is taking is an inability of small businesses and households to pay rents and debts in that space. We need the government to be able to pay rents and debts on behalf of small businesses and households. And that should not be done with massive borrowing. It should be done rather with a wealth tax to make sure that the burden for paying for this crisis for the affected months falls on those who are most able to bear it, and ensures that we don't end up in a situation afterwards where we're crippled by a debt, beset by pressures for austerity, and therefore unable to marshal the politics necessary to invest in a rapid transition to renewable energy. I think that how we respond to this crisis is essential to our next move, which is how to respond to the climate crisis. One of my main concerns about QE, I'll briefly say, is that it tends to have a significant impact in terms of increasing inequality. We saw that happen after the global financial crisis. Effectively, what it does is it pumps up asset prices, including houses. Poor people end up having to have higher burdens of capital payments they have to then make to rich people, exacerbating inequality. Now, this is a problem because inequality itself is an ecological problem. The more unequal the society, the more ecological destruction it does.
What we're talking about here is how do we allocate the scarce resources in society, that's labor and material resources, how do we allocate those to the things that we want society to deliver? And at the moment, we have a very unfair way of allocating that. I'm not sure that just magicking up things like QE is the right way around to that. I think it helps us avoid the real question we have to ask, which is, what is the appropriate value structure of our society that says how we allocate the resources we have? We're an incredibly wealthy country, highly unequal in so many respects. And so it's not that we're short of resources or labor. What we're short of is the courage and the innovative capacity to move that labor and resources to do more worthwhile things in our society.